What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Monday, December 4th, 2023. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil. Phil, we're back to Monday and Friday. Our nice 6-month vacation of once a week every Wednesday is over. We are diving back into full-on lacrosse action. It was a very busy weekend. I watched every single game, and I'm ready to actually get going in the NLL season for the 23-24 season.
Yeah, it was probably like my favorite thing about the weekend was simply watching live action NLL games. And I know we've talked about it a lot that now we have to cover all the games and all the teams, so it's going to be a little bit more complicated / we're going to be doing a lot more research and homework throughout the week and weekends as we try to watch at least every single game or as much as we possibly can to learn about all the teams that are now in this one unified standings. But really what it came down to was the excitement that the NLL is back, and it was a lot of fun just watching two teams that, the Bandits obviously weren't playing, so just watching game after game after game, not necessarily mattering immediately to the Bandits, but still just a lot of fun to watch some live NLL action, and really glad the season is finally kicked off again.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to dive into it, but what's a benefit to our increased workload in the NLL is the Bills were off this week, and it doesn't look like playoffs are I'm not even going to say a given. They have a lot of work to do in the final 5 games to even get in, and the Sabres are just a dumpster fire once again. So we are saving our time of having to invest time in the Bills and Sabres, and we're just going to invest it in the NLL. So if you are like us and are sick and tired of everything Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres, but are ready for the Buffalo Bandits, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X or Blue Sky or both at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com, and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. Like we said, Bills bye week, but that doesn't mean the things that would impact their possible playoffs stopped. So for week 13, we figured we would look around the league real quick. There were a few meaningful games that actually had an impact on what the Buffalo Bills would do, and really nothing really broke their way, and one kind of did, but it really didn't. The Colts took down the Titans in overtime. Unbelievable Gardner Minshew, Hal Murray, Alec Pierce, 2 unbelievable catches in that game. But he came down with it, and then Pittman scored in overtime for a 31-28 victory. The Chargers took down the Patriots. Hold your horses, 6-0. Whoo, doggy, if you can't tell me the Patriots are tanking, I don't know what you're looking at. The Falcons beat the Jets in a whopping 13-8 fashion. This one does help the Buffalo Bills. The Cardinals, in a 2-time rain delay, build roofs over your domes, you stupid idiots. The Cardinals defeated them 24-10. The Dolphins walloped the Commanders 45-15, and the Texans beat the Texans beat the Broncos 22-17. The Browns are still facing the Rams right now, but it looks like the Rams might walk away over a Flacco-led Browns team. And then you got the Chiefs facing tonight and the Bengals on Monday night. So, Phil, any games that really stood out to you that benefit the Bills whatsoever?
Not really. I mean, at this point in the season, I think you and I kind of agree. I think they still have a wild card chance for sure, but I mean, I was kind of eyeing the Dolphins as the team that they need to get past, especially because you have that game in hand against them kind of thing. So coming down to, those final games of the season against them, they were the ones I was still kind of eyeing to get into the playoffs, but as they continue to win, it's getting farther and farther away from that being any kind of scenario. So now you're kind of left with the wild card, and that's not looking all that good either. I mean, the Cardinals beating the Steelers is pretty helpful. I will give you that one, and that's mildly exciting, but for the most part, no. I mean, some really, really boring football in there with one game that the two teams are boring between the Colts and the Titans, but overall, pretty interesting game. But, I mean, the Chargers, the Falcons, Texans have been a kind of fun story to keep an eye on as well. But overall, not much going the Bills' way and not that much excitement in general.
Yeah, I mean the Bills are currently what 2.5 games back of Miami now because Miami's 9-3, Bills are 6-6, but they hold the tiebreaker right now, so they're leading the AFC at the moment. Kansas City plays on Sunday night, so we don't have those results just yet. But if you want to run through the wild card teams, if Cleveland ends up losing, we'll probably know that before the end of this show. They fall to 7-5. Pittsburgh 7-5. Indy's 7-5. Those are your three wild card teams. And then ahead of you, Texans are sitting in the eighth seed at 7-5. Broncos did lose, but they hold the tiebreaker over the Bills, so they're 6-6. Right behind the Bills in 11th place is Cincinnati. So if they win Monday night, they jump the Bills. So Bills actually fall in their bye week one more spot to 11th, and then right behind them are the Chargers and the Raiders. Are both at 5-7. So it's no cakewalk, and like we went over it multiple times still to go. Their schedule's still yet ahead. They still got Kansas City off their bye. They got Dallas after that. Then they got the Chargers, who are a slouch, but you see the teams that the Bills have lost to so far. The Patriots, who the Bills lost to already, and then the Dolphins to round out the season. So they need to steal at least 4, if not win out, to have a good chance at a wild card spot, because you can pretty much as you want, kiss the AFC East away, because 2 more games really that the Miami Dolphins have to win, 3 max, and the AFC is clinched by Miami. But yet not much went the way of the Buffalo Bills this week, and wasn't really expecting much because the Bills kind of dug themselves a grave by losing to the Jets, by losing to the Patriots, by losing to the Broncos, and no fault but their own.
Yeah, and the Dolphins quickly pulled up their schedule. They got the Titans, which is likely a win. The Jets, it's going to be a win. Then they have the Cowboys, Ravens, and Bills to finish the season. So if the Bills win out, I could see there's a potential of the Dolphins losing 3 of those games, and then you are looking at a potential AFC East championship again. Possible. It's still in there, but the Bills winning out is a gigantic if right now with the way they have just been finding new ways to lose games. That's what they seem to do best coming off their bye. We'll see what they can do. But if they can go 5-0, there is a chance that they can win the AFC East. But again, Miami, that's looked really, really good, still has to lose 3 of their last 5. Sure, some of those are tough, but they've also done a good job finding ways to win. So we'll see. We'll see. They have to start winning games first before we can talk about anything else.
Yeah, 1 week at a time. They got to defeat the Kansas City Chiefs. If they lose the Chiefs, it's pretty much all but gone. So, yes. Phil, is there anything else you want to add to this segment before we move on to another splendid Buffalo sports segment?
You did ask for teams to build roofs over the dome. I think that'd be impressive.
Roofs over the dome just to prevent any of these delays. It only in a multi-billion-dollar industry do you have to have rain delays when you have the capabilities of putting a dome or a roof over where you're playing. It was raining throughout the entire United States this week, Phil. Nothing speaks good football like watching a bunch of grown men struggle to keep their footing in the rain when you could prevent this. I'm talking right to you, Pagulas, right to you, Western New York. Build a dome, and I know it's not happening, so we're going to endure this for like another 50 years in a beautiful, beautiful open-air stadium. You idiots. That's all I'm going to say. You're idiots. So we'll move on to the Buffalo Sabres. Man, they did something right before we get into the games. Levi was sent down to Rochester. They sent him down the day after we recorded, so when we were talking about them possibly sending Levi down to Rochester, we look like idiots because it happened the day before that episode came out. So just know we recorded Monday night. They sent him down on Tuesday, so don't come and hurt the messenger. But Levi was sent down to Rochester. I think that was the correct decision in the moment because carrying 3 goaltenders was stupid to begin with.
Yeah, I think he just needs to develop. I mean, they've talked about it a lot. They even did a few interviews after it happened with former really good goaltenders and kind of just pulled up some stats of all these incredible goalies that had spent time in the AHL, even if they made it to the NHL pretty quick. I think the smallest one I saw was like 40 games in the AHL before they made their NHL jump. I mean, it's a position that usually takes years and years of development, even in AHL, even in the NHL. So I know they had high hopes for him. I know his tryout last year in this high-pressure make playoff situation looked pretty good, and we had high hopes for him coming into the season. But with the way he was struggling, I think it's absolutely the right move. Get him to the AHL, let him grow and develop as a player. He still has every chance and opportunity to eventually be this team's number 1 and still be an absolutely incredible goalie of the future, but right now he needs to develop. He needs to, I think, kind of just calm down himself. I mean, his trajectory since college, and since go from college straight to the NHL, straight to trying to be a team's savior and number one goalie. I think it's just mentally good for him to take a step back and look at his own development and try to just develop and, focus through his growing pains that he's had so far. And so far he's played pretty well in the 2 games he's been in. He had a 40 save performance in his first game down there they went into OT in that game and then the shootout, and he stopped all the attempts in the shootout to win that game for the Amrics, and he has a 921 save percentage, much better than what he was doing in the NHL. So I think he's already doing a little bit better, and I think he just needs to grow a little bit and gain some confidence back from where he was.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we kind of hinted at it towards the start of the season where, we were not seeing the same dominant Levi, and we said, hey, maybe we were fooled by the 9-game sample size that we saw, and that it really is true that goaltenders need some minor league work before they go to the NHL, and that's a reason why he would have been the first ever goaltender to go straight from college to the NHL and kind of excel. So I think this is a needed move, not just for the team, but for his development down the stretch and into his young career already, is developing down in Rochester, harnessing his skill down there, and then when it's time to call him back up. But his time might be short-lived down there because it's been gross. Monday, yes, we missed this one. I went on Talking Buffalo and we talked about it. 5-1 victory. Paterka, Tuckhead 2, Middlestad, and Oposo were your goal scorers. UPL 25-26 saves. Shots were 39-26 in favor of Buffalo. We don't have to talk in depth in that game. Thursday, they lost to St. Louis 6-4. Darlene, Benson, Krebs, and Paterka were the goal scorers. UPL 14 of 20 saves. Shots were 46-20 in favor of Buffalo. I don't understand how they lost that one. And then Saturday versus Carolina, I understand how they lost this one. 6-2. Middlestad scored and Joe scored. Comrie, 29 of 35 saves. Shots were 35-22 in favor of the Canes. All I can say is at least they scored some touchdowns.
Yeah, the Rangers game.
Goals, not touchdowns.
I was just going to.
Kyron Williams just scored a touchdown, so it helped me a little bit in fantasy. I'm still getting crushed by my brother, but I noticed he scored touchdowns, so I think that's why I said touchdown instead of goals.
That's fair. They could use some touchdowns for the Sabres.
Yeah,
it'd be nice
yes.
to put up 6 points. We don't even need the extra point, just put up 6 goals. The Rangers game looked really good. The Blues game, like you said, they probably should have won. I thought UPL looked okay in that game. I don't think he looked as bad as the goals show. He was probably his worst game in a while, for sure. I don't think he looked like himself. I don't think he was not to blame at all for that game, but I think there were just bad defense again for a few of those goals, and I think it's pretty much half on him, half on the defense as far as the goals that went in. And then the Hurricanes game, it was just a flashback to the previous game where they just did not care at all, did not try. I don't know. The biggest thing with this entire team the whole season, and this has been the last month that we've talked about this. Every single time we do a group of games like this, we come in here and we talk about the exact same thing, and it's simply consistency throughout the entire squad and the entire team, game in and game out. They do not have it. I mean, either the offense is bad, the goaltending is bad, or the defense is bad, or it's some weird combination of both. I mean, they put it all together against the Rangers, and you looked great against a 15-3 team. And then you turn around the Blues game, like you said, probably should have won. But then the Hurricanes game, you go out there and just play absolutely terrible. So in 3 games, you have one that you played really well, you played pretty well, should have won, and then you played absolutely awful. And that's just the lack of consistency from this team is a joke. They have, from what I can tell, they have just no leadership out there at all. I mean, the leadership they do have, the veteran presence they do have is good on paper for a growing team, maybe at practice, but it's not doing anything on the ice. There's no fire, there's no intensity, there's just no one to yell at this team and get this team moving and get this team going. There's just such a lack of consistency, and this is absolutely not the start to the season that we expected after last year.
So, I mean, I won't talk much on the Monday game. They dominated. They withstood all the tests. It was a game that we weren't expecting them to dominate in. Right. And they got their timely goals when they needed from Tuck, and UPL was incredible in this game. we made a reel on it, and it blew up, and we're on TikTok now, so go follow us there as well. Trying to hit it big on the video that
on the talks.
Producer Pat created. It was Phil's little baby idea, and then Pat put it to paper and made a nice reel of it. Thursday, they dominated, but they broke down on the back end. It seemed a lot like last year, where they were more gung-ho on trying to score rather than worrying on their back end. And then there was breakdowns in the defensive zone, not getting the puck out, not covering up who was around you. They come back from 3-0 and tie it 3-3, but then you missed opportunities to take that lead into full control, and UPL was just not as strong in this one as he was in Monday. Saturday, this is what broke the camel's back in this one. You hit the nail on the head. The leadership in this one is it's pitiful right now. The passion that these players have is non-existent. There's no fight. No one is getting mad. The power play still stinks. Something needs to change, because 25 games in, and I was hoping, because they're playing on Sunday night right now versus Nashville. And guess what, Phil? They're already losing 2-0 again. This team comes out so flat in the first period that they're playing catch-up nonstop. And when you're playing catch-up, you end up with games like the St. Louis Blues, where you dominate them in every single category except for the scoreboard, because you have to change your style of play by gambling more in the offensive zone, and then you're jeopardizing your defensive zone more, and your goalie gets burned. And when your goalie wasn't standing on his head like he did on Monday night game, you're going to get blown out. And that's why they scored 6 goals on Thursday versus the Blues, and that's why they're losing tonight on Sunday night versus Nashville, because they come out so flat. I don't understand what happened from that team from last year, when it was locker cleanout day, where they were so ticked off with a 91-point season where they just missed the playoffs. Where is that passion? Where is that fight? Where is that just anger this season? It's non-existent. They're so inconsistent. How can you have such good games against the Rangers like we saw on Monday and just completely lay an egg versus Carolina and not even show up? The week before that, what game were we talking about where they just were embarrassed and almost got more goals scored on them than they had shots on net?
It's just Senators.
Maybe the Jets. Was it the Jets game?
Devils. Sorry, Senators.
Devils.
7-2. They got
good call. We got there.
Terrible.
We got there. But it's just, I don't understand, and I don't know what needs to happen. They're not firing the coach. They're not blaming the GM, but there needs to be some accountability, not just on the players, but on the. This needs to fall at the footsteps as well of the GM, of Kevin Adams, who decided to come back into this season with almost the exact same team. They added 2 new players on the defensive end, thought that would be the upgrade, thought they would get more consistency in net and Levi. That hasn't worked so far. UPL did step up, but after, last game versus the Jets, he did struggle in that one, so that left a bad taste in your mouth. I think he's starting tonight in Nashville. But
yes.
My biggest question here is, what is the next step to get them out of this rut? Is it, firing assistant coach and getting better in the power play? Is it sitting some guys that might be shocked that they're in the press box watching the game? It's just, something needs to change in this team, because you can't be 25 games into the season, still don't know your identity, still being this inconsistent, because we've said it from the start. Yes, it's an 82-game season, and you're going to have duds every once in a while, but you can't fall so far behind the 8 ball, because that's what happened last year, and that's why you missed it by 2 points. Technically 1, but you needed 2 to jump the team in front of you, the Penguins. So you missed it by 2 points. That's what happens when you have an 8-game losing streak last year, where you can't string back-to-back wins together this year. It's mind-numbing, and it's so confusing, the lack of leadership and the lack of accountability on this team, of just players that are not performing, and then when it's time to perform, you just lay an egg. And it's not just one player. Right. It's the majority of the team is they're just not showing up for a whole entire period, and then wonder, we lost another one when we dominated. I wonder why. It's because you went down 3-0 to start the game.
Yeah, I mean, to me, another thing is just the depth scoring still completely non-existent. Middlestad's leading the team with 21 points. He only has 5 goals, though. Yes, I think he's playing really well for what he's doing. I think he's one of the bright spots on this team, but you're still so incredibly top-heavy with Middlestad, Peterka, Skinner, Tuck are your big forwards, and after that, Thompson, with only 16 games played, is still the next one on that list for points on the team. That's terrible. He's played 8 less games than some of these players, and he's still sitting at the top of your chart for offensive ability. Like, the depth on this team is not good. The defense looks very shaky pretty much all the time now. I don't know why they're giving up such bad 2-on-1s and rebounds. They don't look good. And then, like you said, just the power play's bad. And then another big one I saw the last few games, which is very concerning, is that their faceoff percentage is 31st in the entire league. And that's obviously awful.
It was bad last year, too.
Yeah, they're at 44.7. But the big thing that's concerning with me with that is there were 2 goals. I think it was in the Hurricanes game and then the Blues game.
Yep.
That was straight off of the face-off, and it looked like a very planned play, both of them, where they know they have a really good chance to win that face-off. They drop it right back to a forward who can shoot, and then it burns the goalie because he's screened and can't see anything. And the teams seem to be almost setting up these plays in these offensive situations, these offensive face-offs for them, because they know the Sabres have a lower chance of winning than they do, and they're just playing and setting up these immediate offensive opportunities off the face-off where they're pretty much just guaranteed to win the face-off, and then they go out and score. It's just, I don't know, this whole team is very scary. Again, you go from, you skip the Blues game, but you go from a Rangers game that you arguably going into it shouldn't have won and you crushed them, to a Hurricanes game where you just got absolutely demolished. You looked like you were, once again, skating extremely slow. The Hurricanes just blowing past you. And without Thompson there, I know, I don't want to hang the entire season on him by any means. I know, he's not an excuse, but he seems to be the leader that this team is missing, and just, it's non-existent there. Again, the guys that are the veteran leadership aren't doing anything, and it's just really bad what this team is putting out there right now, and the consistency is terrible. And like you said, I don't know what you do. I really don't know what you do with the Sabres team. Something has to get them fired up, but I don't know what it is. Like you said, I don't know if you change lines up again, you bench players, you fire somebody, but something has to happen. This team just looks so flat, non-existent, and dull half the time. And again, the consistency is the biggest thing that's been missing this entire season. They can't go on any kind of run of winning games or getting points. They have a 3-game point streak, and it wasn't even a 3-game win streak. They don't even have 3 straight wins the entire season. Luckily, the only thing that's really holding on to this season is that they don't have a really big losing streak like they had 2 or 3 times last year. But other than that, they're not doing anything that's all that impressive. And again, coming off of last year where you were that close to playoffs, they just don't look like the team we were expecting them to be coming into this season.
Yeah, they're 4 points back of Ottawa, who has 5 games in hand of them. That's gross. Where we're looking at right now. And out of the playoff spots right now, they're 4 points back of the Islanders for that last wild card spot. But here's the teams you got to jump. You got to jump the Flyers. You got to jump the Lightning. You got to jump the Penguins. You got to jump the Devils. You got to jump the Canadiens. And then that's where you're sitting. And then you got the Blue Jackets 2 points behind you. So it's not just, hey, we're 4 points back. That's great and all. You're still 4 points back. But look at the number of teams you have to jump already. That's not good. When you... let me pull this up right here, because I am actually very interested in what this looks like. They were, third or fourth in the league in goal scoring last year?
I think it was fourth.
Let's see. We're going to count this live. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22nd in goal scored. And there's teams behind you like the Ottawa, who has played 19 games, so they're probably going to pass you because they're only 6 behind you. It's not good. Like they were anticipating other players stepping up. They were anticipating, hey, if we get more stability in net, we're going to look like a better team. And you've gotten some more stability in net with UPL,
but your offense
has disappeared. Yeah, your offense just disappeared, and that's what we were worried about coming into the season. Is you were worried you were banking on all the players that had great seasons last year to come in and do the same thing or excel at that. You were expecting Paterka to take that jump step, to take that next step. You were expecting Jack Quinn, who did get hurt. Sure, if that was your plan, was holding on until Jack Quinn comes back, that plan's down the dumps right now because the rest of the offense has just disappeared. That was my biggest worry, and I don't think I hit it hard enough in the offseason, was your team that had so many I've said this so many times now, so many milestone and career seasons by players on your team that you were banking on all of them to have that good of a season or better, and then other guys stepping up as well, and then your back end getting better, and it just didn't happen. And it's not just disappointing, it's a big letdown for the passion that you had, and it started from game 1 where they packed that house and ready to go, and then you put up a dud and lose that game, and then you lose the next game. It's just, it started off on a bad note. The power play still stinks. They haven't even figured that out yet. They're still working around, like, when Thompson's out of the power play, they have nothing. Like their whole power play revolves around that one timer from Tage Thompson. And when it's not going and when he's not on the ice, the power play is even worse. And I didn't think that was possible because they stunk all year with that play.
Yeah, Peterka, I know you weren't specifically calling him out by any means, but he is having a really good season so far. He's pretty much halfway to his point total last year in only 24 games, and he is +3 this year. Great. So he's been him and Middlestat to me are some of the bright spots as far as players that needed to step up this year. I think they are, but they're not stepping up to a beyond elite level where they're going to carry your team. They're stepping up to a level that would be great for depth scoring if you had, 2 or 3 other lines that were doing fantastic as well. They would be a really good second or third assist line or, a secondary scoring line, but they're not going to be able to carry your team, even though they're doing pretty well. But the rest of the team just isn't there. And I mean, another small bright spot, Benson still looks really good. I think he's very young. Fun. He's got a long ways to go, and it's super incredibly frustrating to continue to think about this team's future because we've been doing that for going on 12 years now. But Benson does look incredible, and I do think he's going to be quite an exceptional talent for this team as he gets older and stronger and better. But it's just so annoying thinking about the future, and it's nothing against him. He's played really well for the little bit of time he's been in the NHL, but I'm so sick of thinking of what this team could be years down the line when these younger players step up. But I'm over it. I'm over it.
Yeah, the talent level on this team should be in a playoff position right now, flat out.
They're better than they're playing, that is for sure.
Much better than they're playing. Just consistency. That's all we're asking. We're not even waiting for, like, I said this last year where I was like, I just want meaningful games in March and April. I just want consistency through the rest of December. Is that much to ask? So backwards. If you were coming here and coming to us hoping that you would find answers and ways to turn around the team, I got nothing for you. I mean, my best advice, and I think that's it, is fire whoever runs the power play, bring in a guy that knows how to run the power play, and bench some players that weren't expecting to be benched. Cousins could use some time off the bench because he hasn't performed at all. I know he's had some injuries and the mask issue, whatever, but he's the only one with passion on Saturday night, and they're down 2-0 after one period in Sunday. So that passion dried up real quick. But yeah, if it wasn't for Benson, I wouldn't tune into any of these games, and I have to tune into these games for this. So whoop-dee for you that don't have a podcast and don't have to talk about Buffalo Sabres, but we do. So, Phil, we'll move on to our final segment here. It's the Bandits segment, and they didn't play. They were on a bye this week as well. So 2 of our 3 segments, the teams were on bye, but we're going to review the 5 games that took place. Phil, I don't know about you, but I watched every second of every game. It was more difficult because on Friday they had 2 10 o'clock games, and then on Saturday they had a 7 and a 7:30 game. You couldn't space those out a little bit more for you? But I was able to watch.
The Sabres were on bye yesterday. They didn't.
Yeah, I didn't even bother watching that one because it was so pitiful. I was like, okay, I'll finish the New York Philly game after the Rochester Calgary game. I'll watch that, so I don't have to watch it on Sunday. And then I was like, it's not even worth it. I'm not even gonna watch it. I'll just look up at the highlights and what everybody said. And I don't want to put myself through that. So yeah, I admit I didn't watch the Saturday game, and I don't think anybody else that watched it wanted to watch it. So here we go. First game on the slate of the NLL season was Saskatchewan versus Halifax, and whoo, doggy, Halifax looked like an absolute juggernaut. They won 17-12, and the score doesn't indicate of how dominant Halifax actually was. The shots were 66-46 in favor of Halifax. And Phil, your boy Jake Withers, he won 31 of 33 faceoffs. That's pretty darn good, and that tied a record in the NLL. Halifax scored the first 7 of 8, and 9 of the first 11. They were just dominant in this one, just hands down. After, I think the first 5 minutes, it was already 7-0, and I was like, well, this game's over. I already got one win in the win book for our BSC picks. But, yeah, Halifax came out and put a licking on a Rush team that was trying to figure it out from a whole rebuilt team in the offseason.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it looked like. The Rush just did not know really what hit them. I mean, 9 goals, like you mentioned, of the first 11, but even more to that, 9 goals on 18 shots early on in the game. They were scoring on 1 of every 2 shots, whereas Halifax, and something I noticed in this game that, I don't really think we got a good understanding of what the Halifax offense really can do. Obviously, it looks incredible putting up 17 goals, but I think the Rush goalies were just letting in a lot of really bad goals. I mean, if you, out of the 17 goals, and normally I do not go this in depth, I didn't do it with any of the other games, but as far as where the goals were going in, because I noticed an extreme theme throughout this game, and it was not corrected at all by the Rush.
I'm raising my hand. I know the answer.
PK,
I know the answer.
What would you like to say?
Were they low? Were they low shots?
Do you know how many of these 17 goals were low goals? I'm
going to go, Price is right here, 12.
13.
Oh, I win. What do I win?
A high five later?
Okay, I'm high five the camera.
There you go. Yeah, 13 low goals. That is ridiculous. For your 13 of your 17 goals just going in at the feet, just low somehow. The Halifax offense found something very early on that was working, and they just went after it again, and again, and the Rush just had absolutely no answer. So I don't think we got a true look at what this offense can do. Obviously, they are very good, but I think they were getting goals that normally they should not. Withers, though, even with the face-off ability he had, the hat trick on top of that. Again, the Rush literally just let him walk down the middle of the field 3 straight times. I don't know what the Rush were doing. They did not look good. I don't like their helmets that are pretty much all white and with like some small little decal on it. I don't know what that was about either, but the Rush all around looked like a team that has just a ton to figure out.
Yeah, what's amazing is Cody Jamieson didn't even play a full workload because he came back off the PUP. He was working his way back in. I was like, man, Jamieson isn't really playing much. And then I remembered, he came back from the PUP. So with the score out of hand, I think they were restricting his shifts a bit. And they didn't even play with Austin Stotts. So you can add 2 more juggernauts to that offense. But Pettersson, they kept saying on the broadcast that the coaching staff there with Acursi just wanted Pettersson to score or shoot more. 5, 3, and 8. I think he got the message. Shanks was 1, 6, and 7. Benny himself had a hattie with 12 loose balls, which I believe was just the 5th time he was over 12 or more loose balls. I think that was Adam Levy's tweet. And then Withers, like you said, 32 loose balls, 4 block shots, a hattie, a goal, and 4 assists. Every time I was watching, I was like, he's winning these so clean, and then he's just going down and nobody's stopping him. Like, not a single person would stop him. And then when they finally did, he just passed it off to, I think it was like Pettersson or something. They just ripped the shot.
It was Pettersson.
Yeah, Saskatchewan was just they were too soft. They were out of sorts. They looked like a team that was building from youth and haven't played together very often. I mean, every time Saskatchewan would go to score, Halifax would score right away. This was it, 7-2. Withers scored 6 seconds later off a faceoff. 10-5. They're getting back in it. Withers would score 7 seconds later off a faceoff. 12-6. Okay, you cut it to 6. Theed would score 6 seconds later, and then Pettersson 20 seconds later after that. 14-7. There's still an outside chance. Pettersson scored 18 seconds later, then Jamieson scored 22 seconds after that, and then Kirsch scored 24 seconds after that. This one was a game that faceoffs mattered. We are a show that says faceoffs only matter when they really matter. This game, the Saskatchewan Rush barely had the ball for the majority of, I think it was the first quarter, because Withers would just win the faceoff. They would go down, use the whole 30 seconds, and then they would score. It was just utterly dominating performance by the Halifax Thunderbirds. And what's terrifying is they're just going to get Austin Stotts back, and they're going to get a healthy Cody Jamieson. And Warren Hill did look pretty good in this one. He made, 34 of 46 saves. So he did step up when he needed to. I just think that Halifax offense is going to be a little bit scarier than we thought they were. Yes, I know that Saskatchewan's goaltenders, because they had both of them play in this one, weren't that great. But Withers is another animal, and I am terrified to find out if Bandits don't have any kind of matchup for him, because he could win every single faceoff, and Bandits might never see the ball, and that's a little scary to me.
Yeah, I mean, those stats alone, exactly what you just said. As far as matching up against Halifax, we'll see what their offense can really do against a different competition, but they definitely have a really good offense. That's why they're one of the better teams in the entire league. And, I mean, I picked them to be top 3 this year. They're off to a good start, but Withers and that face-off ability, the Bandits currently don't have Max Adler on the team, so that to me is a huge red flag in that kind of game. And even Toronto has TD Erlin. He's also incredible at faceoffs. So there's some of these games that, I mean, we'll see how the season goes for the Bandits as far as not having a true faceoff guy. They've done it for many years and been okay. So we'll see kind of what their strategy is this year going into it without one. But a team like this with Withers and how incredible he is, that sounds like a little bit of a red flag. But as far as the Rush go, I mean, the really only positives I saw was Mans in his first game with the Rush, 3-3-6. I thought he looked pretty good. And then was it Barnaby? Barnable, I think is actually what it is.
Yep. Yep. That goal.
That goal,
baby.
exactly. You messaged it in our group chat. You were like, did anybody see that goal? I didn't watch it live, but eventually I did see it. I think it is a early goal of the year candidate. If you didn't see it, it's the last goal of the game between the Halifax and the Rush, and it was for the Rush. It was an incredible goal. He has a defender draped all over him. He ends up having his back to the goalie and then just dunks the ball over his own head into the net and scores before he hits the crease. Really, really incredible goal. Early candidate for goal of the year. It's one of the very few bright spots the Rush had going for him.
Yeah, they face Buffalo faces Halifax in week 9 in Halifax. So
we got some time.
I know.
We got some time to figure it out.
I know. In 2021, I think it was the 2021-2022 season, where they ended up signing Adler the week after the Toronto matchup, where they think they won one faceoff. So just pointing that out, that was week 7 where they lost 12-10, and TD Erlin just made them look silly. So I'm not saying it's going to happen that they're going to go out and find a faceoff guy, because currently in-house they got Nick Weiss, they got Chase Frazier, Ian McKay. I think Dylan Robinson took one last year, but it might have been just a defensive shift one. Just throwing that out there, that in years past when they've just gotten dominated, they did go out and sign Max Adler. So maybe they can do something to convince him to come back.
The thing they used to do as well was automatically lose the faceoff on purpose, so you couldn't get that immediate takeoff like Withers did.
That would have been smart by Saskatchewan, right?
Right. If you false start, then the ref has to stop and start the play, and he has to blow the whistle before they start. So yes, it's still a very quick transition, but if you quickly false start and your team knows that they're set up on defense, then Withers can't just sprint down the field and dunk it 3 straight times.
Would have been a smart decision. But we'll move on to the game that, I'll be honest, I wasn't all that interested in watching, even though their opponent for next week it was playing in this one. Albany won this one 12-10. Shots were 50-41 in Albany's favor. Albany somehow did, and they won 12-10, going 0 for 9 in the power play, including a 5-on-3 for a full 2 minutes they didn't score on. The Wolves did score the final 3 goals in the final 4 minutes and 28 seconds to walk out victory in this one, but the biggest thing I could take away from this one is you could tell both teams are very young. Both teams are still building. Both teams are still ways away from the rest of the league. But, Jameson looked good early, and I think when the Buffalo Bandits face them next week, and we can kind of clue into a little bit of what we're going to be talking about on the Friday show right now, is you got to get to Jameson early, and you need to make him move, because he has bricks as feet, and he doesn't want to move, so you have to make him move. And Las Vegas did a very poor job of that, and that's why they only scored 10 goals and walked out with an L.
Yeah, it was a very back-and-forth game. Vegas came on strong really early, then Albany caught up, and then from there until the final 3 goals, it was very, very back and forth between the two teams. I thought Greer looked pretty good for Vegas at his age. He's 37 years old. We talk a lot about that in lacrosse, that even at 37 plus, I mean, we got Vince looking 40 plus and still looking incredible. Lacrosse is a game where you can play if you're one of the elites, even if you're not quite as good as you used to be. You can still play at a high level late in your 30s, which is extremely rare in sports, especially one that this physical, this high pace. You would think it really wouldn't be possible, but they continue to find a way. But Greer is another one. He had a hat trick, 2 assists, 5 points. I thought he looked good for Vegas. And then Simmons for Albany, his first goal of his career that he scored. He was the 2022 4th overall pick. I thought it was a really sneaky shot that he scored. He just kind of, I don't know, it didn't look like he was going to shoot. Then all of a sudden he launched it and scored. But he had 2, 2, and 4 in his first game. I thought he looked really good as well. But yeah, I don't know if Albany, I don't know, should have won this game going 0 for 9 on the power play. Anytime in the NLL you're going 0 for 9 on the power play, including a 5-on-3 for a full 2 minutes, that is ridiculously bad. I mean, that's bad. That's not good. I don't know how I don't know. I mean, lacrosse is a game where you score a lot of goals. Even without that, they scored 12 goals. But how you go 0 for 9, I don't even know how that's possible. That's impressively bad on the power play.
Yeah, I think the reason that Albany won this one is because Las Vegas went, watch this, and they took so many penalties
Right.
that their defense got so tired. And that I think that's a big reason why you saw them come back from being down one in the final 5 minutes, and then Albany would score the final 3 goals because the defense was just so burned out. The offense didn't get much time on the field to show out what they could do. I mean, their highest scorer was Casey Jackson, who had 4 goals, and I think 2 or 3 of them were dunks. Like you said, Greer looked good, but Hellier was non-existent. Hannah was non-existent. Those top players that you were thinking were going to perform for Vegas didn't show up, and a lot of it was because they didn't get much opportunity to do it because they were in the box so often. But Albany does look like they have a bright future with some of the talent up there. Ty Kurtz looks good. Alex Simmons looked good. Firth, even coming from Vegas last year, he looks good. He had 2 nice goals and 3 assists. It's the biggest thing that stood out to me is not even Albany. It was Landon Kells. He looked really, really good in this game. And what I could tell is he was very calm and composed in net for such a young goaltender. It's weird because he did come over from Calgary, who was backing up Del Bianco. So really last year was his full on, and they said this on the broadcast, it was his first full season of having the net to himself because, Del Bianco, he's not coming out of the net regardless of what the score is. So Kells didn't get much time in Calgary. To see what he was able to do in front of the defense that Vegas provides him, I thought he was really good, making 40 or 52 saves. I thought he was really good in this one, and the future is very high in the net for Vegas. For Albany, the future looks very bright on the forward groups. I don't think that they're going to get very many wins this year, even in a unified standings. Again, they beat Buffalo in week 1 last year, so anything can happen. I'm not even doing anything. It was 11-10 last year. Albany is going to win in low-scoring games where Jamison stands on his head early. He gets his confidence going, and you're going to get good defense from Albany. But Albany, if they're going to win these 12-10 games. They're going to win 13-11 games. They're not going to go out there and score 15, 20 goals. It's not going to happen. They're going to score these low-scoring goals and hope Jamison has a star-studded goaltender of the year ability in net for them to get to 7 wins, and that's not a shot at them whatsoever. It's just that's where they are currently in their rebuild.
Yeah, they do look like a fast young team when they had the opportunity, but I mean the youth showed through with that 0 for 9 power play. You didn't have any like veteran captains really showing and
right.
Taking over on a power play situation like that. And then as far as Jamison and Kells go, I mean Kells is 22. I also agree with you. I thought he looked really good, and to know that Kells did that good and also held their team to 0 for 9 on power play. I mean, that's a lot of work for a goalie in the NLL. It's very easy in the NLL to set up power play opportunities. I mean, once you get the ball, you have a full 30 seconds to pass it really effectively, usually really fast, and it's really tough for a goalie. So for him to be able to be a backbone for the Las Vegas penalty kill, I mean, we should give them some credit for holding Albany to 0 for 9. It wasn't them just being terrible. I mean, it doesn't look good, but at the same time, Vegas did a good job on the penalty kill as well. And then Jamison only had 31 saves because, exactly like you said, I mean, that's 18 plus minutes that you are on the power or penalty kill for, really kind of limits your offense as well.
So we'll move on to the game I chose to watch over this one. Don't worry, we're going to have plenty of time to talk Albany on the Friday show. We're going to preview that game nonstop on Friday. So if you thought, man, they didn't really talk about Albany, stay tuned. A few days, we're going to be nonstop Albany. But Panther City versus Vancouver. Panther City won this one 11-7. They dominated the second half 6-3. Shots were 51-41 in favor of Vancouver. And all I can say is Panther City came out very, very slow, and then they dominated. They allowed 4 goals in the final 3 quarters. It was another team that looked like they were working on getting Malowski's system in place with Vancouver, and a team like Panther City, who has had Kelusky for the past 3 years.
Yeah, exactly what I was thinking. I thought Panther City looked just like the more ready team, similar to Halifax and the Rush. The Rush looked like a team in a rebuild that simply weren't ready. Halifax is a more established team looking to push for the cup. Similar here. I mean, obviously Vancouver's, trying to win, trying to do a good job, but like you said, they are with a new coaching staff, new system, a lot of new players. It's going to take more than one game for them to really get it going. Panther City was a up and coming team the second half of last year, and they look established already. They look very good. I thought Demude overall looked like he had a very good game. Like you said, Vancouver came on strong early, then Panther City really fought back and did a really good job after that. Crawford, again, another player. He is 39 years old and just talked about it with Greer. He does not look like it at all. He had an incredible game, 5 goals on 12 shots. For a player at that age,
four straight
goals, just putting up insane stats. I mean, 5 goals in a lacrosse game. It happens. I don't want to say super frequently, but it's not unheard of by any means. But still, it's very impressive, and he looks like he is ready for this season and ready to push for playoffs for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you exclude the first quarter, which you really can't do, but it was 3-1 Vancouver, this is kind of we always say, and everybody always says, lacrosse is a game of runs. And this explains why Panther City came back. They went on a 3-goal streak, then Vancouver put 1 in. And then 4 straight by Crawford, Vancouver scored 1. Panther City scored 1, Vancouver scored 1, Panther City scored 2, and Vancouver scored 1. So any momentum or any streaks that Vancouver was looking to get, Panther City put a stop to it. So I agree with you. Your goaltender of the year nominee, Demude, and winner, I should say, because that's who you picked to win the goaltender of the year. He plays out of his net a lot more than other goalies.
Like
I don't know if it's due to his size. I don't know if that's just his play style, but at least to me, it looked like he wasn't a goalie that would stand in between his pipes as much as everybody else. I mean, you saw New York and the Philly game that we're going to be talking about in a minute. Dunkerley and Higgins, they do not move from those posts whatsoever. It seemed like Demude was coming out and cutting off those angles a lot more, so it'll be interesting to see as the season progresses is if that's just his style or if that was the certain game plan going into Vancouver. But man, Vancouver, they got some players, but I just don't think anybody really stepped up in that system. And it's kind of expected having just a month into the Malowski system. It's going to take a bit to get into it. But Crawford, Will Malcolm, they got some players. Even Donville, only 1 goal, 3 assists. But I think I did knock Panther City down in my projections a bit because I thought their offense would struggle a bit. Having only 11 goals kind of reinforces it. But again, Vancouver has a very good defense. It'll be interesting to see how Aaron Bold holds up for the full year because, you know, he's top 5 goalie according to GMs and coaches.
But did not look very good.
I didn't think so either. I didn't think so either. 30 saves on 41 shots is not great, and you're going to face teams with better offenses than Panther City the rest of the year. But these teams definitely do not like each other, Phil. I noticed that.
No. Demude also 5'11", so he does not play a Ward style
Typically,
where he's really big and standing out. So I don't know. I mean, just like you said, I think it just comes down to his style of play, but clearly it works pretty well for him. 45 saves. I thought overall he had a good game. But yeah, Vancouver is a team that will definitely stick around. They're not going anywhere. They'll be in games. They have a lot of talent on that team, but it's going to take them some time to come together for sure. They did not look like the better team in this game. I thought Panther City definitely outplayed them.
So the game that I don't want to say I was the most excited for, but this ended up being the game that was the most competitive, you know, inside and out. And it might not even have looked that competitive after the first half, but Calgary versus Rochester. Rochester walked out of this one winners 14-13. Shots were 64-47 in favor of Rochester. Phil, it was 10-5 Calgary in the first half. It looked like Calgary was nonstop. I even tweeted out from our account that if Calgary plays with this amount of speed and pace their whole year, they're going to be so scary. It seemed like it died out in the second half, and it seemed like it died out once the goalie change was made because the second half, Rochester outscored Calgary 9-3, including 8 straight goals into the from the third quarter into the fourth quarter, and they just dominated after that. It seemed like once Hartley got subbed out, and this is your motto all the time, once a backup goaltender comes in, something switches in the defense and they play so much better. But once Hutchcraft went in to relieve Hartley, it seemed like something switched. The Calgary wasn't able to get the same run and gun offense out there in the transition game. And Hartley got chased not once but twice in this one, and he did not look good in the time he was in there at all.
Yeah, I do wonder. Again, it's way too early to make any kind of assumptions. I think the Nighthawks still want Hartley to be their guy, but
Yes.
he had 6 saves and allowed 8 goals in the first 16 minutes of the game. You should never have more goals allowed than saves. He just didn't look good. And so, I mean, with Hutchcraft coming in and looking as good as he did, I do wonder how many times Rochester's going to possibly allow something like this to happen throughout the season. Again, it's game one. Not going
The
to.
leash got shorter.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think Hartley's still their guy, and they still want him to be the guy, but Hutchcraft came in and really settled this team down, and he is the true reason. Obviously, Rochester's offense came to play in the second half. Like you said, 8 straight is ridiculous, but I mean, Hutchcraft really settled that team down and stopped Calgary from scoring. I mean, if they had even scored a couple in the second half at all, then it would have been game over for Rochester. So I think they could have a little bit of a goalie conversation. It's too early to really tell that at all, but it's interesting for sure. And then, like you said, 10-5 Calgary at half. I think the goalie switch had a big thing to do with it, but I also wonder if in the second half they just got too complacent a little bit, knowing you're up 10-5, kind of thinking that you're going to walk over the game, and then all of a sudden Rochester puts 8 straight on you and then comes back and makes it really close and then ends up winning. So weird to see a team as well coached and good as Calgary. I mean, I know they got a new coach this year, but still the team knows how to win. They know how to play. They're one of the best in the league. So it's strange to see them have such a big second half collapse, but credit to Rochester for not giving up at 10-5 at half and really coming back and winning this game.
Yeah, I mean it's completely flipped. It was a tale of different halves, and I put it out there. Calgary looked like an unstoppable force in the first half, and I even put out it's very, very early, but if they're able to play with this amount of pace throughout the entire season, it'll be interesting. Josh Sanderson coming over from San Diego. He's their new head coach out there, and I know he's a run and gun guy. I mean, his name is Shooter for a reason. It can't give him Shooters for a reason, but it's going to be interesting to see if they go back to that style or if they take some notes away from this one, because once the second half flipped, Rochester in their transition game took over. Smith took over. Fields took over. Gilray took over, who I think he got gypped out of a possible transition player of the year last year. Not even just a nomination. I think he got gypped out of it along with McKay last year. 8 straight goals by Rochester, though, was utterly amazing. To see that comeback, to see what they were able to do, and to see Calgary have absolutely no answer of what to do from the third quarter into the fourth quarter, what to do to stop it. It was unbelievable. And the whole fourth quarter was amazing to watch, because even after, Rochester went up 13-10, Calgary kept inching back and trying to get back into it. So this was the most fun game, most competitive game that I watched, and Fields was getting into it. I don't know if you noticed that as well, but Fields is usually that calm, composed, gunslinger forward type. He was getting into it with Calgary because I think he was tired of getting some hits on him. But Fields 4-2-6 on 18 shots, 11 loose balls. Smith had a hattie with 3 assists on 14 shots. Gilray 2-1-3 with 11 loose balls. Water got involved. But the biggest thing I can take away from Calgary, when they don't have a transition game and they're not running and gunning, they are a much different team. And when you don't have a clear-cut go-to goal scorer, I know King had a very good game last year, or season last year, but to me, they just don't have that Dane Smith. They don't have that Connor Fields. They don't have that, Benesh, that go-to player that can stop a run and put the ball in the back of the net when you need to have it. And that's a bit scary for a team like that who relies so heavily on Del Bianco and that transition game to keep their, game flowing.
Yeah, I think that was both of our concerns with them as a team. That their offense, as far as a 5-on-5 setup, established offense, they
Correct.
don't have one of the better ones in the league. They're not bad for sure. They have some players, like you said, King, Cook, Pace, Dixon especially. They have players that can score, but when they are in that setup 5-on-5 offense versus defense, they are not one of the better teams in the league. They're a very heavy transition team, heavy defense, and very heavy Christian Del Bianco. So they like to score quick, score fast, and then just clamp it down on the back end. But when you need goals or need, like you said, need to stop a run, they just don't really have as much offensive firepower as some of these other teams. And that is the kind of knock against them and the thing that we're concerned about as far as them going forward looks like. And these two teams, I just double checked real quick, they did not see each other again the rest of the year unless they see each other in playoffs. So that was a one and done series for them that got pretty intense, pretty heated, like you said, with the Connor Fields getting beat up quite a bit.
Maybe a possible first-round matchup as well. So we'll move on to the final game of Week 1 in the NLL here. Philadelphia versus New York. This was one that I am not saying I'm wrong, but it perked my interest to see what Philly was able to do in their 13-10 win over New York. Shots were 58-49 in favor of New York, and this one seemed like a Buffalo Sabres type game. And the New York Riptide were the Buffalo Sabres in this one because Philly took a controlling 5-0 lead into the second quarter. New York did cut it 6-5 at halftime, but that was the closest they would get. And it seemed like a team that just came out too slow, too tentative, too, building on the new faces that were a part of the team. And it just took them too long to get involved in the game and back into the game where, when you go down 5-0 early, it's hard to catch back up. And you saw that at the end of the score with being 13-10.
Yeah, I thought New York did a good job coming back. I mean, they definitely started terrible, like you said, 5-0, but they got to cut it to 5-6 at halftime. I thought at that point they were going to be able to kind of make a game of it. The closest they would get after that is 10-8, and then as similar to a lot of the games we saw this week where a lot of it was just back and forth. Like one team would take over really early, the other team would catch up. From there, it's back and forth. But again, the Wings let them catch back up. But after halftime, they took an 8-5 lead and then just did not really allow them back in. Every single time the Riptide scored, the Wings had an answer right back to them. So it was just one of those games where, again, like I credit New York for catching up in the first half, but then after that, they just did not have enough of a defensive and goaltending effort to really catch up and kind of take over the game. And I think with all the offseason moves they made to shore up their defense, and, we'll see what their goaltending can do. I think it's a little bit of a concern early on that in a game like this where your offense was a little bit lackluster, your defense is really what's supposed to kind of take over. Obviously, they're still going to be growing, like you mentioned, with a lot of their new faces, but defense was the big thing that they needed to focus on in the offseason, and allowing Philly to put up 13 goals isn't brutal, but it's also not what you're looking for in the second half when you were able to catch up and then you just could not clamp it down enough to allow your offense to try to really take over.
Yeah, I thought Higgins played really, really well in this one, 49-59 saves. Dunkerley seemed like he was trying to keep them in it as much as he could. Even in the first quarter, three of those, the first three goals, two of them came on the power play, and the third one came on a delayed penalty, so it was 6-on-5. So he was doing everything he could. I think Philly actually scored 2 extra goals, but you just couldn't see the ball under Dunkerley. I think he played very well. I thought he played very composed. He was one of those goalies that played so deep into his net. Same with Higgins. It just seemed like the defense just broke down too much for New York, and that's expected with so many new faces, hopefully, and we'll see as the season goes on if they can work that out. But Matisse is playing more forward than back end now, so we'll see how that works out. But they have the defensive names back there now in Wild, in LaFontaine, to see if they're able to kind of reshape the back end. Even Kevin Brownell, who's in his second full season there. It's just O'Connor struggled in this one. 1 goal on 12 shots. Matisse had 11 shots, 2 goals. Teat had 1 goal on 15 shots. It seemed like their goals just weren't flowing, and they waited too long to try to capitalize on those opportunities. And then the back end, they just broke down. How many times did you see Blaze Reardon diving across the crease and scoring those goals? I think 3 of the 4 goals were those diving ones. It was unbelievable how they just kept leaving them open and open. But I will admit, Philly's offense did perk my interest, and I think they're going to be better offensively than I was giving them credit for in the offseason. I still don't think they have what it takes to make the playoffs. I'm not changing any of my predictions after 1 week, but their offense does have some names and some players that I think will contribute a lot more than I was giving them credit for. So they are fast. I think they achieved what they were looking for in the offseason. But it was still a weird offseason, in my opinion, on what they were doing, in my opinion.
Yeah, Riordan, the way he scores and just the size and stockiness that he's such a strange player. Like, you just wouldn't expect a guy like that to be
that agile.
Right, just diving across the crease like a lot of his goals end up being, but he's that kind of just very tough forward that'll just drive right through you, similar to Nanakoke, where he just takes you on one-on-one, knows he's going to win with his physicality, and then dives through the crease and scores. He's a fun player to watch. I think he used to be on the Bandits way.
He was rookie season, I believe.
Way back in the day, but would be amazing to have him now. But they don't need him; they'll be all right. But overall, yeah, this game was interesting. I mean, you don't want to hang it on one player, but sadly for New York, they have one player, and that one player just didn't do what he normally does. I mean, Jeff Teat starting the season with only one goal is not what you are.
Not good for my prediction.
Right, not good for your prediction, and not what you're used to seeing out of a player like that and that ability. So I think, I mean, when you only lose by 3, again, you absolutely don't want to ever hang it on one player, but he is absolutely their offensive lead, and for him to be only held to one goal, huge credit to Philly and their defense. But I mean, that is kind of where you're going to look immediately on the stat sheet for New York. He is their sole offensive leader still. I mean, yes, Matisse in his first game, 2 goals, 1 assist, not terrible, but Teat's definitely where it flows through, and he only had 1 goal, so it's going to definitely kind of just be where you throw the blame at New York right away. But their defense definitely still needs to pick it up overall throughout the season.
Yeah, Teat still had a hand in half the goals that were scored, but yeah, Philly's defense did a very good job of making it very uncomfortable and cutting off any inside looks that Jeff Teat would have. I mean, you see that with the 15 shots. They did a very good job of limiting the high danger opportunities that he would have. But very fun first week of the NLL. If this is the way that the season's going to go with the unified standings, I am very excited for it. But we're going to have plenty of time to talk about that on our next show. Phil, is there anything else you would like to add to this Monday show before we shut it down for just a few days until we're back on Friday, since we are twice a week again, every Monday and Friday?
I had a few other quick around the league kind of observations, I guess.
I like it.
So for the most part, the teams that we saw, the home games we got to see, most of the fields are pretty bright and basic. There were 2 things that stood out to me the most. The Vegas game, I don't know if you were watching any of that. I mean, I think you said you watched that game, but it was very dark. The field conditions, especially near the goal, it was surprisingly dark. I don't know if it was just the broadcast and the players could see fine, but the field compared to all other broadcasts that we were watching was very, very dark. I don't know if it's the lighting.
Might be their colors too, black and white.
I don't know. The field itself did not look bright at all. So that was...
No, it was a very dark field.
It was very strange. And then on the other side, Vancouver, I don't know if you saw when they scored, but their whole field was super bright. Like everything about it was bright, but they also have the light up boards when they score, which I absolutely love.
That's what Vegas has too. Vegas has the same thing. Okay. They're very cool.
And then the field itself for Vancouver looked it looked like brand new turf. Like it looked like it had never been touched before. It looked very, very fresh. Thought it looked really good. As far as, I don't know if you saw this on the website, but did you see that NLL now has stats for the players again?
For this season?
For all the seasons.
Oh, really? Holy cow.
Here's the thing. I'm excited to be breaking this to you. There's 2 aspects of this, though. If you're on NLL.com, I don't know if they know this, but if you're on the website and you search Dane Smith and you click on him, it just says page not found, doesn't work. But if you go to Google and you type in Dane Smith and click on his NLL profile page, it comes up with his bio and then his stats throughout his entire career. So I don't know why their website is broken, but yes, we have progress. So if you search a player individually on Google, and go to their NLL.com player profile, it has all their stats for their entire career. It is all back up. Just don't look at it through NLL.com, because then it will say it's not found for some reason. But we got progress. We're getting closer.
I'm rubbing my head, but I have to remember this is the NLL, and this does consider progress, Phil.
Yeah, we're getting closer.
At least we didn't have what happened last year, and all the stats just disappeared the day before the NLL season started, and we went in blind, not knowing any stats. So this offseason, I copied and pasted every single stat from last year, so just in case that happened, we had it on hand just in case. But yeah, progress, I'll take it. I'll take it where it is there. So I guess with that, we'll end on a high note here, because NLL, on the right track, guys.
We're getting close.
You give an I tried badge. You did good. You don't get a trophy, but you get a participation one. So that's all I'm going to give you right now. But it's on the right track. You're on the roller coaster and headed up, and it's going chick, 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 chick. And I'm going to stop there because
you're losing it.
I'm losing it, Phil. It's a Sunday night, and I'm about to get my butt kicked by my brother, but I'm still alive in guillotine, and I got 2 more weeks until the money round. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. We will be back Friday with another show to preview the start of the Buffalo Bandits season. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Code. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.